Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new session of our Leadership and Wellbeing podcast. I'm very happy to have today here Rosario with us. I think it's very exciting. Thank you, Rosario. Thank you for accepting. I'm very much looking forward to picking his brain, so to say, and to asking a lot of questions, or not a lot, but, as much as I'm permitted in the time we have. Rosario, I would like to ask you to present yourself a little bit, to let us know who you are, what you do at SIG, for how long have you been doing it, and maybe even why, and so on, whatever you feel is relevant.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you, Anna. So I'm Rosario. You can probably tell from my name, I'm Italian. I was born and raised in Italy, in the southern part in Sicily. I'm in SIG, I'm the Vice President of Global Product Marketing, a very interesting role for me, at least very challenging, that covers all of our product strategies, innovation, and collaboration with all kinds of parts of the organization to deliver these products, make them available to our sales team, and above all to our customers. I've done this since 3.5 years, roughly, a little bit less. And I've been done it I was based in Germany, in Linich, for most of this time. And very recently, I moved to the US, where I maintain the same role. I live in Michigan with my family, and I have a wonderful team of product managers that are mostly located in Linich, Germany, with a couple of exceptions. And who I am a former engineer who became a marketer early on in his career. I've studied in Italy and then moved to US, and my work life has evolved through many different continents. The first 13 years in the US. So I worked in the space of consumer durable goods in home appliances for a company called Whirlpool Corporations, which is headquartered in Michigan.
We all have some Whirlpool in our houses, right?
Exactly. It's indeed the motto of Whirlpool is every home, everywhere. So it's likely that you have one, which was very foundational for me because I've been part of a rotational program in engineering where I worked in procurement, R&D, manufacturing. So I had early on a big exposure to different things. And that was very beneficial, actually. I would advise every young person to start his work career this way. And then eventually I honed into R&D, where I spent 6 years doing advanced electronics development for home appliances. I was actually a software developer for microcontroller embedded software. So pretty technical stuff. But this led me to work a lot with marketing as applying this new function and features. So I was part of several consumer researches and focus groups, and I got very interested in the topic of understanding consumers. And that led me to study marketing and finance into an MBA program that then led me to switch to a marketing track within Whirlpool. So I became a brand manager and then a category manager. So I have several marketing roles until I joined a very similar company to SIG called Tetra Pak.
Haven't heard of them. They must be little.
And in this company, I've performed a similar role to what I do today, which is global product management. I worked in Italy. I moved back to Italy for 4 years. And it was very formative into understanding the food and beverage industry and what packaging does into this industry, right? The role of packaging, the system, business model, very much similar to SIG. So very, very important formative period that was followed by a experience in a market of Tetra Pak. I moved into a frontline role as a head of marketing in Japan. So also a big personal experience for me and my family to move there, and continued for several years. So I ended up living in Japan for 8 years and then moved back to Europe, to Germany this time, not back to Italy, until I joined SIG 3.5 years ago, with some time in between. I worked for a different company in consumer product space for a few years. So Today, I think this is a bit what defines me is a multicultural exposure and several different company and functions that I've been part of. But it all builds into, let's say, what is my mindset in looking always at a cross-functional angle and finding solution as a contribution on many different uh, uh, components, right? So I'm always curious to
We
find additional angles into things.
we could and we should develop a multiculturality training with you, Rosario. Definitely. I think you have so many stories to tell. I can only imagine um, what you gathered in all these countries and all these years. So I do have so many questions now, but I will try to stick to some of them. And listening to you, listening to how impressive your career has been so far and how many things you tested and did, I can imagine that also as a leader, you've grown so much, you've experienced so much. And my question to you is, can you think of something that you believed very early in your career and you don't believe now anymore, or you changed your mind? Like, I don't know, for example, I remember perfectly thinking when I was very much in the beginning that you need to be authentic and be yourself, and everybody should adapt. And I've come to realize that we need to adapt a lot when we are leaders too. So it's a fine balance, right, in between. It's just an
Yeah,
example. So I'm super curious what you used to believe in the beginning and you changed your mind about.
yeah. I mean, I think maybe it's a bit obvious, but I will say it. I mean, for me, in the first few years of my career, because it was true also when I was in school, in college, it was that mindset that if you work really hard and you do the best you can, that's what you need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if you do that, everything takes care of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which worked very well in school. You get good grades and pass tests and all. And also when you start your career, it's very important that you do this, right? You need to learn and deliver, and people need to notice you, and then eventually you get given bigger jobs. What I did not believe, that I do believe now, though, is that this is not sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary, but not sufficient. What is important is to you allow other people to do the best they can, right? Around you,
Yeah.
because nobody alone carries the wind home, right? And
Yes.
so in my career, I met many, many smarter people than me that were not able to get other people to do their best. And they
Mm-hmm.
did not go very far. And they were way smarter than me and way more capable and talented. And yet they were not able to enable others to do the best they could. And that, to me, is what I learned that I didn't believe at the beginning of my journey.
Yes. Yes, that's very deep. Thank you for reminding me of this, indeed. And I think it goes very well with our, not necessarily struggle, but constant efforts at SIG to develop talent and develop others, right? I think and it should be the main priority of a leader when it comes to their team. But it's not always easy. Indeed, it's a combination of, it's not a natural gift, it's something you work on. It's a lot of factors there. Thank you for saying that, indeed. Um, Again, thinking of your career and everything you've shared with us so far, right? And everything you've learned and all these countries and all the places you've been and the things you've done, I think what probably helped a lot is that you've gotten used to the new things, to uncertainty, to unknown. And I'd like to ask you, because we live in a world that more and more has to deal with constant uncertainty and constant change, and especially I think in your field and with your team, what do you do and how do you support maybe your team? And this is something we can all learn, right, from you and your team to deal with all this constant ambiguity, with fast pivots, high expectations, everything you have there in your field. How do you deal with them? How do you help your team to stay focused and, still be winning in with so much change and uncertainty?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult to answer it very simply, but let me make an analogy. I like sailboats. I sail, right? So when you're in a sailboat, you need to win a race, but there's many factors, right? So you have a plan. So first of all, you need to have a plan, right? Because it keeps you organized. It keeps you also measurable, whether you're making progress or not. We can compare. But that plan is subject to change. You know, when you're in a sailboat, the wind can shift. The other boat can do something. They have the right of way. You need to make a maneuver that you were not planning on. So I think observing the conditions around you, which is not always easy when you get deep into what you're doing, you get into a track, right? And you get almost annoyed if you have to leave the track, right? It stresses you because you have a plan. So my best advice to my team, but to myself, I have to say, is that don't get married to your plan. Right? The plan is a compass, like what in a sailboat would be, you know where north is, right? And eventually you know your final arrival point, you know, your buoy, your mark. But there may be different ways to get there.
Yeah.
And some may be better right now, but if the wind shift, I'm going to make a tack and go the other way. And I need to pay attention to the wind. Because if I only pay attention to the end point, I may not be in the best way to reach it, right? So always surround yourself also from people that can observe these things, because we get tunnel vision, but other people can see things we don't.
Yes.
So how do you get these other people to help you observe the wind shift, the competitor? Because individually, each of us cannot keep track of all these things, but collectively we can. And to me, what I still work very much at improving, because I think it's, to me, is where you can make a difference. How you do get other people to contribute to this? How do you make them to speak up? I can tell you when I moved to Japan, my first job, a day in the job, they said, here's your team, right? And it was 30 people reporting to me, all Japanese. I'm the only expat in Japan. There's 30 Japanese people. Half of them don't speak English. So we have an interpreter at work every day that allows me, all of the slides are prepared in Japanese. And then I need to let them contribute. And they don't speak very often. The silence is okay. The people can be in silence for 5 minutes. Everybody's comfortable. We in the Western culture, 30 seconds of silence and we panic. There's a ton of space for silence. How do you get them to contribute? What prevents people from telling? Yeah, so that's the $1 million question. But one key aspect to me is to make them feel safe. You're not the boss who's gonna punish them if they say something silly, or you're not gonna think that they are less of a smart person, or you make it safe for people to tell you even dumb things, because amongst dumb things, there's gonna be a gem, right? That otherwise you would not know. It will be the wind shift that you're looking for, and nobody will tell you if they feel unsafe.
Yes.
How do you make that a safe environment for people to help you observe what's changing? Because otherwise you're in a sailboat, you're in the not best course to reach the mark.
Yes, yes. That's very nice for you to say this, and so true. It got me thinking of so many aspects. Basically, you defined so well psychological safety, and I know it's easier said than done. I know this is hard for a lot of people, right? Especially for a lot of leaders, but I think this is like the ideal state when you get here. And I think it actually shows, you can see in a team when that team is working together with the leader and really wants the leader to succeed and all of them to succeed together, or if they are working against each other, or they're not really driven to help anyone because they don't feel safe, they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel, you see that from outside, but from within it's harder sometimes indeed. Very nice. I like how you compared it with your sailing experience and with the wind shift. I think this is a metaphor most of us will remember. Thank you for that. Yes. And you already answered one of the questions I wanted to ask you, if there was a moment in your time where, all these cultural experiences marked you and gave you good insight you can use in leadership. This is definitely one you just mentioned from Japan. But feel free if there is any other cultural insight you gathered throughout the years that you can
Yeah, I
share.
mean, to me, another one is important, and it's very difficult even for me to do at times. It's not first nature, right? Second or third nature is to really just, when you make a mistake, just say it, right? Don't hide it. It's tough. It's very difficult, right? Especially if you've done something that affects somebody. Just apologize, right? Don't go around it. Just say it. You made a mistake, because that opens also a lot of mutual trust, and people feel free to also tell you, okay, but I also did that, right? But you start a conversation that basically nobody is perfect, right? We all make mistakes. Why do you need to appear like you never do? It's not human, right? And
Yes.
it's hard. It's hard very often, because you say, if I admit to one mistake here, then there's a risk that it looks like I'm always wrong, right? Or I'm not going to convince you, or you are wrong, or right. But I mean, those things become a bit of kind of vicious circles, bad circles, right? Where we don't want to admit to things, and then you create distance. And again, it goes back to psychological safety. If I'm always right, you feel like you cannot be wrong, and you don't want to say anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that to me is very hard to do, because it's not natural, it's not instinctive. You have to kind of almost uh, kind of drive yourself. It's like writing with the left hand, right? You can if you want, but you don't do it naturally, right? If I ask you, right-handed person, write your name with the left, right? I'm sure if I give you enough time and you really want to do it, you can. It's going to look a little weird, but you can do it. So if you tell yourself, at this point, I need to write my name with the left hand, you can do it if you want to do it. If you say, I need to say that I'm wrong, if you want to, you can do it. But it's not natural. It's not instinctive.
Yes, indeed. But it can be liberating. I know for a fact. I remember clearly 2 or 3 moments actually at SIG when I want to say it in a nicer manner, messed up, so to say, things at my job. And I remember perfectly how liberating it felt when I immediately went to my leader and admitted and owned it and came with a solution, even though I was a little bit terrified, right? So, but it feels good afterwards. This is also important, I think. You feel proud of yourself, prouder.
And I think related to that, there's one more thing that I think it's hard to do, is to, and this goes also when you give feedback to people, right? When you want to say, hey, let me go over this, what happened here, right? And maybe something goes wrong. It's just to stay away from labels and say you are incompetent, or you are something, because that's a judgment on the person, right? It never goes well. While to say, this is what happened, you list the events or the facts, so it's not the person, you describe the situation, and then you say, and this is how I feel about it. It's not about who you are, or the label I give you. Say, this happened, which we should align on a version of the truth, right? Otherwise, we're all over the place. The first thing is to establish what happened, not who did what, or who is what label. But then with that, I think you start with saying, I feel this way about this. How do you feel? And that to me, when you are able to do this, it's amazing what level of engagement you can get, because you're not threatening the person, you're trying to describe the events, and then you can say how you feel. Nobody can tell you how you feel. Everybody's entitled to feel, but I can only describe my feelings. I cannot tell you how you feel.
Exactly. Yeah, and I cannot assume. I
I
always
cannot
remember
assume.
this.
Yeah, that would be the worst. That I give you, that I attribute a feelings to you. I don't know. Well, you need to be able to tell me if you're safe and comfortable.
Exactly. Exactly. So I know our time is almost up, but I still have one last question for you, Rosario, that I really want to ask. And this is the following. What do you look for when you're hiring the next generation of marketing leaders? I think this could help a lot of people listening to this podcast. What are you looking
Mhm.
for?
Well, I mean, to me, one thing is the first thing we said, hardworking, do the best you can every day, because it's not sufficient, but it's necessary. If you're not a hard worker, and then you're missing the wheels. There's not a car
Yes.
if you don't have the wheels, right? So hardworking, willing to really put the time into things. Passion goes with it. Passion about what you're joining to do, right?
Mhm.
You shouldn't do it for the money. You should do it because you're passionate. And then never enough. You should be curious, an immense amount of curiosity. So if you're a hard worker, passionate and curious, you check all the boxes for me.
That's great. That's really great. Thank you so much. I would love to continue. Maybe we do a follow-up session someday. It was really great listening to you, Rosario. I have to take some notes, otherwise I'll forget, right? I have some metaphors you left me with, writing with my left hand, and then the sail, and the wind shift and everything. I think these are precious, right? These stick with people, and it brings perspective to the surface when you most need it. Thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for doing this. It's been a pleasure and always great to have these conversations with you.
Looking forward. Wishing you good luck in everything you do.
Thanks.